Okay, guys, it's official. Recording our very first episode of BioBuzz. This is going to be our attempt to make biology less scary.
Remember when we first, sat in bio together, we were kind of overwhelmed from the first lesson. I mean, like she covered a lot of stuff, but if you've been there, it's okay. That's why we're here to help.
No, yeah, I really remember feeling really stressed and lost during that first class. Like, I came with pre-made notes, and even throughout the lecture, I was still pretty confused. So I wish I had that voice in my head that just told me the right information, but I hope we can provide that knowledge for people listening.
No, I was the complete opposite. I came in with zero knowledge, zero experience in bio, zero notes. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, we were all freshmen when first took the class last quarter, so it's definitely very overwhelming when you're coming into it all new. However, again, we want this podcast to be kind of your guys' cheat sheets. We want to make this super accessible and more fun for you guys. We'll be walking through Professor Ochoa's notes, and so every night of the lecture, we'll be posting a podcast expanding on those notes.
Yeah, and hopefully we can make that like a little funnier, slightly funnier, no promises.
Hmm. Yeah, like I think from learning and having these conversations with you guys, instead of just watching full on the recorded lectures word for word, having these late night study sessions were really helpful. And I really liked how you guys explain it like I'm three or something.
Yeah, I mean, talking it through really, really, really helps because, biology is honestly like a huge subject. But I mean, again, we've been there and we're here to make it, a little less intimidating, a little more easy to understand for you guys.
So I think this is a good note to go ahead and go into an introduction. My name is Ivana. I'm a current freshman, but I'm a pre-med public health student.
I'm Jacqueline. I'm also a freshman pre-med, but I'm a bio major.
I'm Liz, and I'm also a freshman, but I'm not going into pre-med. I'm actually majoring in business psychology. So I thought bio was going to be really scary as a STEM class, and I thought I totally sucked at it. But after experiencing it with friends, it's really not that scary.
hmm That's all of what it is. You just need the support team and good structure, and I think anybody can succeed. I mean, we all took Build 1 last quarter, and we all finished with A's.
Yeah, we're just that good.
Not to
For
flex
sure.
or anything.
Oh, yes, reflexing. Okay.
So let's go ahead and we'll get into the notes now. You can grab your notes and follow along or don't. We won't make you. This will be kind of the nuts and bolts of class. Today's topics are going to be structure and function, cell theory, and why cells are basically tiny apartments. The first big thing we're talking about is how structure defines function. This is something Professor Ochoa definitely hammered into us on day one. And
Hmm.
I know I was left there being like, what, what? So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and cover that now.
Yeah, so well, basically, the idea is that the way something is built or its structure determines what it can do or its function.
It doesn't seem that big, but structure and function is one of the biggest fundamental rules in bio. So, for example, your hands, which have fingers and joints, so you can grab different things. So, your joints and fingers can make up the structure of your hand, which then allows your hand to function by touching and grabbing those things. But if your hand was just a solid block, it wouldn't work the same way.
It's definitely one of the biggest universal rules in biology. We see it from everything from big examples like your hands to even little examples like cells. An enzyme, for example, it's specifically designed to fit a substrate. Think about how a key fits into a lock.
Yeah, so if that, shape of the enzyme gets messed up, like for example, through like a mutation or a change in temperature, then the enzyme can't really do its job anymore.
It's important to note that those changes in shape also explain why proteins that are important for your cells to function do nature if you heat them up too much. So it's kind of like melting a Lego set. Because the plastic loses its shape, it can't function and click together or build the things it needs to do.
Exactly. This idea goes to everything in biology. Another example is red blood cells and how they're shaped like little donuts to carry oxygen efficiently.
And then one more example is, for example, nerve cells. They're super long and thin, so they can transmit signals over long distances.
So basically, that sums up biology in a nutshell, where you should remember how everything has a shape and a purpose.
It's kind of poetic.
I mean, yeah, you could see that way.
Okay, but let's talk about cell theory next. In order to really understand cell theory, we need to realize how revolutionary it was for the time. It's kind of the foundation for modern biology.
That's very true. It's the reason that we even know what life is made of. So the three main points are all living things are made of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life, and new cells come from existing cells.
I feel like those 3 points are pretty simple or basic, but I mean, unless they are pretty revolutionary or crazy.
Well, I think they're important for two main reasons. One, I remember getting tested on it in one of the midterms, so I would definitely make sure you have those 3 points down. But the other one is it was just really revolutionary for when it came out. Before this, the main theory was spontaneous generation.
Oh my God, yeah. Like the idea that mice would like pop out of grain if you just left it in a dark corner or something.
That makes more sense. Like, I guess it would be pretty freaky. Pretty freak. No,
Okay.
like, that'd be scary if you just left food out and then mice would generate from nowhere.
Yeah,
It wasn't until a scientist named Louis Pasteur discovered the opposite. He did these experiments to prove that life can only come from pre-existing life, kind of like how cells can only come from pre-existing cells.
that is true. And again, this experiment was huge. It shifted the way we even, study biology. So like instead of just guessing, we started using microscopes to see cells and, organelles in action.
Wow. Now I feel like really humbled to think about how every living thing on Earth boils down to like tiny little units.
Well, we can zoom out a little bit too. Another thing to understand in biology is why do cells even matter? Why should someone listening to this podcast even care?
Well, there's a lot to be honest. First of all, if it goes or something goes wrong in your cells, your entire body feels it. So think about diseases like cancer, for example. It's just cells that won't stop dividing.
Cancer and even genetic disorders where, like one tiny mutation in your DNA completely changes how your cells can work.
Beyond just health, cells are really the core of everything we do in science and medicine. And when we develop vaccines or study how to treat diseases, it all starts at the cellular level.
Hmm. And I think even things like climate change, I believe scientists are now using cells to engineer algae that can absorb more carbon dioxide.
Yeah, I heard about
I'm,
that
yeah.
too.
Hmm.
So, moral of the story, cells are the MVPs of biology.
Definitely, I
MVPs,
agree.
goats, all of the above.
We need to
Wow.
put that on a shirt.
Well, okay, speaking of MVPs, we should wrap this up by talking about the two types of cells, prokaryotic, which are seen in bacteria and archaea, and eukaryotic, which are seen in animals, plants, fungi, and protists.
Okay. I like this one. I like talking about this. So if prokaryotes were apartments, I'm assuming they'd be like studios, right?
Mm.
That is the perfect example. Uh, pretty much it all happens in one open space. There's no walls or frills.
That is interesting. So, like, bacteria are basically like minimalists.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, they have no nucleus, no fancy organelles. They just work off vibes, I guess.
And then you also have eukaryotic cells, which are like those fancy mansions with, like, I'm guessing a million rooms and butlers. And wait, what's a cell butler?
Bell Butler. I mean, I would say Golgi apparatus, but like, what do you guys think? Because the Golgi does package and provide different proteins for the cell to use.
That is very true.
I definitely agree. I think the mitochondria would be like its personal trainer then, because it's in charge of cranking out the energy through burning ATP.
On another hand, like the nucleus of a cell could be like the home office where all important files are held. And those important files are genetic information, also known as our DNA.
Wow, honestly, it's pretty amazing how complex eukaryotic cells are. Like, it's really just all these different organelles working together, kind of like, like a little city.
Everybody's a worker. I remember thinking in lecture one day that my cells were not doing all that. I know mine's aren't.
Wow, well, that was certainly a lot to cover. But to wrap it up, I feel like we really hit the highlights and added some depth to the stuff lectures usually just, skim over.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of why we just really wanted to start BioBuzz to have conversations about the material in a way that was more approachable and kind of easier to take in. I mean, biology isn't just about memorizing slides. You have to be able to connect the dots and see the whole big picture.
Right, right. No, yeah. BioBuzz also helps bring in different perspectives from all kinds of students. So, as a business major, I only had like one view of science and bio, but talking it out really helped me understand it way more, which means anyone can understand bio to a great extent.
Exactly. And what we're hoping to create with this is a space that's more than just a space to cram for exams, but a place where anybody who feels like they need help has, an additional source.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to our goal of BioBuzz. Even if our ramblings today can help at least, one person feel a little less stressed or a little more excited about biology, then, I'd say it's a win.
No, yeah, I really agree. But speaking of helping, do you guys think we should wrap it up with any final advice or tips for?
Yeah, definitely.
I think my biggest tip is probably approaching the material, actively, not passively. And honestly, don't overthink it too much. Biology is, again, it's a huge subject. It's
Mhm.
weird and it's messy and it's full of surprises, but you kind of just catch as much as possible as it comes to you.
I know we know what an active approach looks like, but for those who don't know what that might entail, could you also explain what actively learning looks like?
Oh yeah, of course. So like engaging with the content, drawing diagrams, creating flashcards,
Or explaining concepts to a friend.
or even your pet, the more you interact with the material, the more better you'll understand and remember it.
Another point that I want to add is to not be afraid to ask questions, even though you might think that they're dumb or that everybody else already knows the answer. It's important to remember that sometimes the dumbest questions lead to the best explanations.
Yes.
Yeah, that point I especially agree with. And also something I wish someone told me before taking this class was to take breaks because your brain needs a lot of time to process all of this new information.
You definitely can't go pulling an all-nighter and then expect to understand how the mitochondria works in the morning.
Yeah. Well, over the next 10 weeks, we will try to approach every topic with hopefully enough time for you to master them before the midterms.
Something to remember is that you're really not alone in this class. There's lots of resources for you to rely on for support, including professor and IA office hours, SI workshops, and Oasis, the person sitting next to you that, you know, maybe you guys can be study buddies together. And obviously us.
We're here to learn with you guys, not lecture at you. Remember, we were in your seats once, so we kind of remember how it feels, and we want to be able to give you guys the best approach to tackle this crazy, crazy subject.
Yep. So if you like this episode, follow us on Instagram at BioBuzzers and subscribe to our YouTube channel at BioBuzz Tutors for more content.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.